Guys, it's Shawn. If you've been watching some of our recent videos, we've been talking about boards of directors, how they're set up, what they do, why they make sense in both the corporate and the LLC context. Today, we're going to be talking about who to include in your board of directors. So, just as important as having a board of directors is having the right board of directors. And this is more of a business issue than a pure legal issue. Although there are some legal overlays in it, we'll touch a little bit upon how the legal system may impact who you select for your board of directors. So you need to think about who to include in that board, and then also what that's going to look like as the team works together and as they encounter the business situations of your business. Again, we will touch some legal issues. It's not legal advice. Consult your legal counsel. This is just for your education and entertainment. Also, not financial or investment advice. Your goal at the end of the day is to have strong decision making, right? That's what a board should be doing. Board serves the shareholders. The shareholders really sit at the top of the pyramid or chart, and however you look at it. The board is then empowered to oversee the corporation, or if you empower your LLC with a board, to oversee that entity with for the benefit of the shareholders, right? So they're going to be watching what's happening there, making sure it's what's good for the shareholders. And fiduciary duty law will drive that home. That generally meaning that board members have a duty to do what's best for those stakeholders, usually the shareholders. Some companies, some states have broadened that to include more people. But we want to get strong decision making here. We want people on the board that are informed, that understand what's happening, that are watching the operations, and also have good business insights about where things should be going. And similar for a nonprofit. We're talking about for-profit corporations today, but in a nonprofit context, you also want board members who have good insights in that nonprofit's mission. You can see that this is pointing to wanting to have a board with different skills, different ideas, different abilities, because that's how good decision making is going to happen, right? You need people who have different backgrounds, different experiences, maybe different technical expertise. You get somebody that's strong in technology, you get somebody strong in sales, you get somebody strong in finance. They all will have to work together as a board to make decisions, because generally what happens with boards is they vote one vote per person. So even that scenario, you've got, let's say you had just those three board members. Usually you're going to have more, but let's say you just had those three board members and you had a financial issue come up. Well, your financial person would then have to go back to the other two people with different technical expertise, apprise them of the issue, and get them to consent. Get at least one of them to consent, because usually majority rules. But you want to set this board up for strong decision making, and by having subject matter experts with different expertise, you're going to generally reach better decisions, because the expert can explain the issue to the other folks and maybe do some of the research and detail work on the matter before it's presented to the board. Meanwhile, you also want to think about other factors as well. Do you have a good cross section of people? And does your board look like your customer base, right? Are they going to understand all the market issues, right? So now we're talking about other factors that really make that board informed and really able to make good decisions. Now, there may be some external factors as well, some of them government directly, some of them regulatory. California has passed rules regarding board composition in certain cases. Certain larger companies have to have a certain number of boards by certain categories. So you'll want to look at that. We've also started to see that come in through some of the stock exchanges. So again, bigger companies may have certain requirements, either legal or regulatory, to diversify the board to include other things. And then now what we're seeing more and more is with these ESG scores, more and more entities are asked to not only manage for the benefit of their stockholders, but also to reach these ESG goals. And often as part of those ESG goals, they want to have certain board composition, etc. So you'll need to look at that and figure out if that's in the best interest of your stockholders. to do that, right? Because that's maybe not a direct legal requirement, but if you want to get large contracts, if you want to play in certain areas, you're going to have to consider bringing that in as well, right? So not only do you want the strong decision making, not only do you want to diversify your team so you get different ideas, opinions, and things brought to the board, but then you also need to look at external factors about what actual legal requirements may be overlaying or what regulatory influences might be there that would push you or encourage you to have a different composition of the board. How do you get there? Well, you want to set up a recruiting plan for your board. So a lot of this depends on where you are. Assuming you're already up and running and you have a board, you may want to bring in either a consultant or a committee to look at what the future composition of your board may want to look like. And they should do a study, both looking at these legal factors and business factors. Where are you? Where do you want to be? How does all that come together? So what you want to do is you want to assemble a team, either a committee or a group within your board, or maybe hire an outside consultant that's going to look at these different various requirements and figure out how to do searches or additions to your board. And so you'll take that report with its recommendations of what your future board should look like and the types of candidates that you're looking for. And then you want to take that back to your board and get that adopted as a board recommendation. Of course, what you want to be careful about too is you don't want to do this in a way that's offensive or exclusive of other people too. A lot of times when these searches are done, you start excluding qualified candidates based on their immutable characteristics, right? So we need to make our own ethical decisions on how that should be done the correct way. How do we try to get to potential, targeted board composition while treating everybody fairly? So that's something we need to think about, and it brings a lot of complexity into it. But you want to know where you are. You want to know where you want to be, and you need to think about how to get there. Part of this, too, is just being conscious. Board members will naturally leave at different times. New board members will come into the board. So as part of that process, what you'll want to do is every time you have an opening, you want to think about what would be good to bring in there, right? So let's say you want somebody with good financial expertise on your board, and they're resigning to move on to another opportunity. If you don't have somebody else on your board with strong financial expertise, then think about replacing that person with somebody with strong financial expertise, right? So we need to think about where we are. We need to think about how to get there and how to pull all those pieces together in the right way. Once you have your board together, you want to think about managing that board. And this is about setting expectations, setting norms, and really pulling your team together. And I'm thinking about doing a longer video about that. So please comment below if this is something you're specifically interested in managing your board. But you want to set the right culture. Your board members are very high up in the chain, right? Theoretically, they are above the executive team, above the CEO, above the CFO. These are the top level people in your organization. They're one step away from the shareholders. And so these people really set the culture and norms in your organization. So you want to make sure that these are good people, that they are going to uphold the values, they're going to set the right tone. And occasionally you may have problems with board members, right? There's been many cases where board members have gotten into issues, they've said the wrong thing, they've done the wrong thing, and then you've got to think about potentially expelling somebody from the board for the better good. Certainly if somebody has, candor issues with financial management, issues with, fraud or other things from some other area that comes to the light of the board, you're not going to want that person there making this key decision making. But maybe they also did some other things which are indicating that they just set the wrong tone for the board, or maybe they're bad for publicity for the board. So from time to time, you need to go in and manage that board. You got to set good expectations, know who they are, and then also you got to potentially move people off and on to your board to make sure it's moving the right direction. Getting the right board is not a simple task, but it is a doable task, and it will make a big difference in your business. It's worth the effort. One of the big questions is how big of a board, how many different backgrounds do we want? How many different styles do we want? And that all varies from company to company. So look at the total picture of what you have, look at what your company looks like, and then figure out how to make a board that fits that, and then start managing it. And again, I want to hear your comments. Please don't put anything confidential in the comments, but do let me know what you're thinking, what questions you have, and what you might like to see for your board. All right, thanks for tuning in today, guys. Look forward to seeing you again soon.